So yeah, today is March 15th, 2022. NXT 2.0 just got off the air. A very eventful episode, a lot of things, a lot of action. Hopefully everybody enjoyed it. I see there's a lot of people who tend to not watch NXT or not care about NXT, and this is largely due to the fact that they changed the colors of the show, and it's not your same favorite wrestlers and whatnot. But I do hands down go on record saying that this is probably my favorite show on a week-to-week basis. The cringiness, the characters, the good in-ring work, the storylines. I know that offends a lot of people for some reason, but I tend to enjoy it. I don't know. There's a lot of good things that came out of it. I mean, we saw LA Knight versus Dolph Ziggler, phenomenal match. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Mandy Rose kicks Jade Cora's ass. Dominick Mysterio showed up tonight, and he had a phenomenal match with Raul Mendoza, so that was really cool to see. Ciampa with a farewell speech. I mean, there was literally so much. The Miz having Miz TV. Again, very eventful episode of NXT, and I credit a lot of this to storytelling, basic storytelling. Maybe the storytelling isn't what you're interested in. That's really cool. It's up to you, whatever. You decide what you like. But I think NXT right now is storytelling. And yes, it does have its cringiness. And yes, it does have some weird stuff. You got Indy Hartwell and Persia making out with Dexter and Duke Hudson. But, I think a little bit of wackiness is fun in wrestling. And NXT definitely had wackiness. But they also had some phenomenal wrestling, right? We saw A-Kid. We saw Kushida, which was really awesome. And obviously, WWE is building something really special with the tag team division. For tonight's live review, I really just want to talk a little bit about different things that happened throughout the night. I'm not going to go in order because I don't really care to. I'm looking at my notes. There's a lot of things I liked, and there were some things I didn't like. I do want to kick things off with Dolph Ziggler versus LA Knight because that's what just ended the show. So LA Knight versus Dolph Ziggler for the World Championship. Obviously, Bobby Roode being on the side for Dolph Ziggler. Braun Breaker not there until the show ends. But LA Knight loses in a very, very good match. Him and Dolph Ziggler looked really good. It just goes to show you, it just goes to show you how good this match is. And I look at the chat and I see a lot of people who want to talk about ratings. Fans love talking about ratings, and I'm not sure why people like to talk about ratings. I'm not sure where that really stems from, because as far as I know, wrestling fans talk about ratings as if they're experts in television and all of this stuff. I tend to not care about ratings because I don't really think the ratings matters to me, right? If AEW or WWE do 1 million viewers or not 1 million viewers, I don't really care. I'm not really affected by that, nor do I really give a shit what their ratings are. And that's why I think I like NXT, because I don't really focus on this internet talk that surrounds it. I look at Dolph Ziggler and LA Knight having a phenomenal match, good storytelling inside. LA Knight, clearly one of the more electrifying wrestlers on the NXT roster. And I look at him and I think, wow, AEW, Impact Wrestling could very well use somebody like that on their roster. I look at the WWE main roster and I think LA Knight could be somebody that would be useful on the main roster. This guy just has the talent, you know what I mean? And it's a really, really good match. And I think that's why a lot of people who actually watch NXT genuinely enjoy NXT. And I see a lot of people, they talk about ratings, they talk about this, or, WWE's bringing in main roster and they're doing this because it's a business thing. I mean, look, as far as this goes, the only thing you should really be concerned about is how you give your money to the company you're giving it to. Like for me personally, I buy Impact Wrestling pay-per-views, and I think Impact Wrestling's pay-per-views are good, and I feel comfortable giving them my money, right? If they don't put on a good show, I don't want to give them my money. That's the only business metric I really give a shit about, because at the end of the day, it impacts my pockets, and that's the same way I view wrestling all across the board, whether it's New Japan, GCW, WWE, or whatnot. So, obviously, a lot of people who think that these main roster stars shouldn't be on NXT television right now, they're not really too familiar with NXT. They don't remember how NXT really came to fruition. Before NXT signed all of these indie wrestlers, WWE had main roster crossover with NXT. People seemingly forgot about that, and that's on you, I guess. I mean, I would recommend that you go back into Peacock or whatever WWE network and look at the history of NXT. When Tyson Kidd was on NXT, when he moved from main roster to NXT, when Jinder Mahal fought Seth Rollins to crown the first ever NXT champion. Jinder Mahal was not an NXT superstar. He was a main roster wrestler. So the reason why I mention this is because I think a lot of fans are they're judging something without actually watching it, like the ratings, this conversation about ratings. It's like, why are we talking about ratings? The show can have 5 viewers or 10 million viewers. And if the show has 5 viewers, do you think the show sucks because only 5 people watch it? I just don't think that. I don't think that necessarily equates to whether or not a show is good. And I've said that before. I think right now, WWE NXT, and we'll go into it a little bit more, but when you look at Dolph Ziggler versus LA Knight, it just kind of goes to show you what is... I think it kind of goes to show you, realistically speaking, it goes to show you that NXT has a roster that is now being prepared for the main roster, right? In the past, we saw call-ups happen. And when we saw these call-ups happen, what ended up happening was they would go to the main roster and then not really get used. So just kind of keep that in mind. By the way, shout out to Austin Baker, a member for 7 months. Austin is the man. If you guys aren't in the Discord server, Austin is like, this guy is OG as it gets. He says, remember to like, comment, and subscribe for great wrestling content and other goodies. Thank you, Austin. I appreciate your support, my brother. You are a good man. Look, guys, this NXT show, and you're going to see a lot of this, right? It's starting to look like the main roster, but it's starting to look better than the main roster. And I think that is one of the reasons why I genuinely enjoy this show. I'm just being completely honest. I genuinely believe that. So I want to talk about a couple other things, right? Because, of course, with the good, there's also bad. So you have NXT doing this thing where Ciampa has a farewell speech, right? He's talking about possibly leaving NXT. Realistically, that's what it comes down to. He ends up getting taken out by Tony D'Angelo. And, it's a good speech. It's a good promo. Ciampa's going out there. He's letting everybody know, like, obviously Ciampa's one of the guys from the Black and Gold brand. Yeah, and we've seen them cross over into the main roster. It is very clear that Ciampa is signaling his way out of NXT. And then this is actually what I really enjoyed about NXT tonight. When I look at NXT and I look at Ciampa, it's clear that he's got to move on. So now we're in a situation where Tony D'Angelo, being the rookie, comes out and attacks him. Obviously, they set it up for the pay-per-view, Stand and Deliver. So again, just a really good moment for NXT to show people that there is a lot of potential for these people that are in NXT. It's showing people, realistically, it's showing that people on the NXT roster right now are being groomed for the main roster. So NXT's roster people are being groomed for the main roster. By the way, shout out to Jared Caudill with a $2 super chat. And he sent a little sticker that says, "Hey you." Thank you, Jared, for your contribution to the channel. I appreciate that, my friend. If you guys don't know who Jared Caudill is, you guys can listen to some of his bangers on streammusic.gg. If you guys ever hear some of the incredible intro music and outro music for the streams on this channel, then you would actually know I use streammusic.gg. Jared is one of the people that is part of the brains. He's part of the team. He makes magic. It's incredible stuff. So if you guys aren't aware, you should definitely check that out. Dylan Chai, baby. Albert Ponce leaves a $2 super chat. Storyline wise, NXT blows away Raw and SmackDown, and that's exactly what I'm getting to. Right? There's a lot of logic here. There's a lot of storylines here. It's wacky. It's fun. It's cringy. It's it's a little like you see a little bit of makeout sessions in the ring, and then you see like a really bomb ass match between Kushida and A-Kid. Like NXT has everything. And storyline wise, I do believe that NXT blows away Raw and SmackDown. Now, a lot of times when I hear people criticize NXT, they talk about the wrestling, right? They talk about the wrestling, which is cool. And I really want to make this a key point. The wrestling in NXT hasn't really changed. It's just the names. It's just the faces, And I'm not here to defend NXT. I'm not saying NXT has no flaws. It has flaws. But tonight just goes to show you that NXT, this episode was a good episode because of good storytelling, right? You add in Rey Mysterio, you add in Dominick Mysterio, you add all these people into the mix, and then it just makes for a really good show. Dolph Ziggler, by the way, losing with no DQ. How many times do we watch Raw or SmackDown and there's a championship match and there's a DQ? How many times? It definitely gets confusing as to why WWE's main roster has that, but then NXT doesn't. So again, Tony D'Angelo setting up the feud with Ciampa, it's a beautiful thing. And Albert is right. Storyline-wise, NXT blows away Raw and SmackDown. Thank you again, Albert, by the way, for the $2 super chat. But I do agree. And I think Ciampa and Tony D'Angelo, in a weird way, you know, we saw Tony D'Angelo with Pete Dunne, and we thought that was great. But now Tony D'Angelo is getting involved with Ciampa. Obviously, Ciampa's going to go to the main roster. I mean, I think Ciampa's going to put him over, or maybe he wins. I don't know. But I don't think wrestling is not defined by wins and losses. Wrestling is defined by storylines and logic. And I think sometimes the main roster lacks the logic and the storylines. And I think NXT is all about logic and storylines. And again, it could be cringy, it could be silly, it could be raunchy, it could be dumb, it could be funny, it could be awesome. But all of these different things, when you actually take them into account, I think NXT really ends up being my favorite wrestling show. And I think Impact is right there because Impact and NXT are very similar in the ridiculousness that is included in wrestling. Now, with that being said, I do want to talk a little bit about Dominick Mysterio versus Mendoza. So this was a really, really good match. And I genuinely believe that Dominick Mysterio, it's like the reverse NXT process, WWE process, right? Dominick Mysterio, Rey Mysterio, Legado del Fantasma, obviously Santos Escobar going face-to-face with Rey Mysterio, by the way, is just a phenomenal thing. I think that is foreshadowing something to come for the main roster, which is absolutely beautiful. Again, tonight's episode of NXT continues to show that the roster that they have in place is being developed for the main roster. And I think they're even going to surpass people on the main roster. We get Dominick Mysterio versus Raul Mendoza. Fantastic match. It's not an extremely long match. Dominick Mysterio getting in some good moves. Dominick Mysterio and Raul Mendoza definitely worked well together. What's really cool is Dominick Mysterio goes up on the turnbuckle. He gets distracted by Elektra Lopez, which I'm not shocked, by the way. He gets wow. Yeah, he gets distracted by her. And then you have, I think her name is Fallon Henley, who is now with Briggs and Jensen. Again, wacky characters. They're kind of like a modern version of APA, sort of. It's kind of a weird comparison, but I really like what they did with those two. Obviously, you have Legado del Fantasma. You have Elektra Lopez, specifically face-to-face with Fallon Henley. It sounds like that's going to be a match for Stand and Deliver. They haven't confirmed it, but I think we're going to see a tag team match or, six-way, right, with Elektra and Fallon Henley both being involved. I'm not sure, but they're definitely building something special there. That all happened ringside. Then Rey Mysterio attacks Santos Escobar. So just in general, the baby faces all look good. Dominick Mysterio gets the win. Really cool setup, by the way, for the 619. So just in general, this was like a really cool thing. And it's nice to see Rey Mysterio and Dominick Mysterio in NXT. This is not going to be something that they do all the time, but to have them come in once in a while and work with these people, right? We all want to see Santos Escobar on the main roster against Rey Mysterio. There's a lot of potential, and you look at Santos Escobar and the swag that he has and everything and the way he carries himself. It's a really funny thing. Like, there's some like cool shit that they're doing with it. And tonight was like a little preview, right? Tonight was the thing that makes you think, hey, I think I want to see more of that. But yeah, just all in general, I really, really loved what they did here. Throughout the night, by the way, I do want to talk a little bit about Cora Jade, because obviously WWE has been pushing the living shit out of her for a minute now. Cora Jade throughout the night is terrorizing Toxic Attraction. So at this point, the dumpster, the cage, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, you'll have to watch it back entirely. But Cora Jade locked, JC in a cage with the lights off and all that stuff. It was really funny. And then she tricked Oh my God, why am I forgetting her name? Geez, I keep wanting to call oh my God. I want to call her by her indie name. I don't know why I'm literally having a brain fart. But nonetheless, it'll come to me in a second. But yeah, so obviously, what's her name gets locked in the garbage dumpster, right? Because of Cora Jade. And again, it's kind of cringy and it's kind of, gimmicky and whatnot. But there's this whole thing that they're doing with Cora Jade. Obviously, she goes and sees Mandy Rose's new Range Rover. She goes in there to basically carjack it. Mandy Rose is smart enough, beats the hell out of her. So, I mean, between Gigi Dolan, that's what it was. Gigi Dolan, right? Gigi Dolan and JC and Mandy Rose, they're all being messed with at this point. They all get their revenge by the end of the night. They beat the living shit out of Cora Jade, spray paint on her, and obviously that sets up the match for Stand and Deliver. Now, me personally, when I saw this, Cora Jade has a very, very interesting gimmick because a lot of people I have seen when they talk about it, they're like, okay, this is a little too cringy. The promos, the way it's being delivered, it's very Disney Channel-esque, whatever. But, one of the things that I want to mention here is Cora Jade is a young and upcoming star. By the way, they're doing a fantastic job storytelling between Mandy Rose, Toxic Attraction, and of course, Cora Jade. So I think what they're doing here is something that's intriguing. I think it's obvious that WWE has plans for Cora Jade to win the belt. I do believe that is going to happen at Stand and Deliver. So I do look forward to seeing how they maneuver around that and what they do with Toxic Attraction. I think Toxic Attraction at this point could very well be going to the main roster as well, which is interesting because I think they've done such a great job of holding it down in NXT. But again, it's something that's happening throughout the night. You follow it, you get involved. Even if you think it's a little cringy or whatnot, I think this is the type of storytelling, it's logical, and something I kind of want to point to, because a lot of people aren't actually talking about this. For some reason, and I don't know the full extent of it, but Eric Bischoff, I read something that Eric Bischoff said something about AEW and the way that AEW kind of misses basic storytelling. This is exactly what WWE gets right with NXT. Basic storytelling. It doesn't have to be confusing. It doesn't have to insult your intelligence. It's television. At the end of the day, it is television. So just very cool stuff there. By the way, a shout out to Zachary. We got a $4.99 super chat. Thank you, Zachary. I appreciate that. If Mandy drops the belt to Cora, is she going to the main roster? I think so. I think at this point, we're looking at what they're doing with, realistically, when you look at NXT's women's division, by the way, there's a lot of people that they're building up. They're building up Sarray, Tiffany Stratton, Lash Legend. They're building up Nikita Lyons, obviously Cora Jade. I think Toxic Attraction has done such a good job in NXT, but I think they are a group that is better suited for WWE's main roster anyways. I think what they've done with Mandy Rose and Toxic Attraction in general has been just phenomenal presentation. And it's like, I wish WWE's main roster took notes from NXT, because when I watch this and I see this group and the way that they're positioned and the way that they're presented, I just think, wow, like, that sucks. Like, they're probably going to go to the main roster and WWE will find some sort of way to screw it up. And I really hope not, because I think, Mandy Rose finally has an identity, but because of Mandy Rose and what this group has done storyline-wise, now there's a reason to see Gigi Dolan and JC, come together and possibly win the women's tag team belts, I don't know if WWE has plans to make that women's tag team championship an actual thing, but if you're really going to take it serious and you really want to bring tag teams together, this is a legitimate tag team. So, Zachary, I think Cora definitely winning the belt would mean that Mandy Rose does go to the main roster with the girls, but I don't know, and I do think, I'm reading Albert's message too in the chat. He says, better question, does Mandy Rose get treated better this time around on the main roster? Absolutely. Because now she has a character. She has a vision. There's a vision for what they are doing and how they are presented. So I do think so at the end of the day. Thank you, Zachary, again for your $4.99 super chat. I appreciate you, my friend. I want to move on to something I really really, really liked. So we get this whole thing with Sarray and Tiffany Stratton, which, by the way, if you don't watch NXT, you're probably not going to understand this whole thing. Sarray has a very weird gimmick, and I say weird gimmick because I don't really understand, like, the concept. I understand the concept of it, but I don't understand, like, the purpose of this gimmick, right? When I watch the show, I look at, like, Sarray is this incredibly gifted wrestler, and again, they give her a character that just doesn't really resonate with me. But at the end of the day, it does make sense. It is logical. Sarray gets like beat up before the match even starts or whatever. Sarray couldn't transform into her actual in-ring gear, which is the reason why Tiffany Stratton ends up squashing her. Again, basic storytelling, logic. WWE, main roster has 50-50 booking. NXT has to protect Sarray because Sarray also has been booked pretty damn well. But also, you're trying to protect Tiffany Stratton, who is a new star, who needs experience, who is trying to get better. They're trying to position her as one of the heels in the women's division. Having Sarray not being able to transform in her in-ring gear, it's like when she's not in character, like in-ring character, she's weak. But when she is in character, she's legit. It kind of reminds me of like this whole Finn Balor demon thing, which genuinely is something I actually like. Because again, the whole character thing didn't really resonate with me until tonight. Now I totally understand what they're doing and how they're presenting her, which I do think is a good idea. And again, I think what they're doing with Tiffany Stratton, it just makes sense, right? She's a good wrestler. She's supposed to be a good wrestler and athletic. It's all about daddy's money. I mean, this is very like, I forget what the movie is with, what's her name? Reese Witherspoon. But I've seen some people compare it to that. I don't know. I just think, again, character work. Characters. I prefer characters in wrestling. I really do. So when I see WWE introduce these characters, I do like it. There was a couple things, again, it kind of goes to show you too what, like, when you look at NXT, sometimes we forget that these people may not have experience either, right? So you have a mixture of wrestlers, some people that have experience, and then you have some people that just don't have experience. Tiffany Stratton, from my understanding, is not the most experienced wrestler, but a lot of that is hidden or disguised because of this character work. So ultimately, if you're trying to get invested in storylines, whether they're good storylines or bad storylines, if you want to get invested in a storyline, I think it's really important to have a character to kind of attach to. And the character that she portrays is something that I have personally seen from people in real life. So it's something that's like not unrealistic or stupid. But I also think wrestling also has a good place for the ridiculous stuff too, which is kind of like the whole, when you look at NXT's roster and you see what they're doing with like Indy Hartwell and Duke Hudson and Persia and then of course Dexter Lumis. Like, it's wacky, it's ridiculous, it's stupid, but it's a character, and wrestling, I think, is more enjoyable when you have these characters. And that's really the common thing that, like, that's the common thing that I've noticed. It's the constant, right, in NXT. Coach mentioned something in the chat too. He says, thoughts on LA Knight losing. Will he get another opportunity? I think LA Knight is bound for the main roster at this point. I think we see him maybe in the main roster, maybe on SmackDown after Stand and Deliver. If I'm WWE, I would have LA Knight. I know you typically don't bring people in for before WrestleMania. They're going to do the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. I mean, it wouldn't be a bad idea to maybe have LA Knight debut there. It is very clear that LA Knight is going to be... He's a star, man. There's no way WWE drops the ball. I'll be really shocked. I could be eating my words here, but I do genuinely think there is a good chance they don't drop the ball. Once I got over the horrible lighting, I really started to enjoy the new NXT. That comment just came from Mike. Yeah, Mike, I agree. Like, I think the lighting, you know what it is NXT is kind of like AEW. The NXT beforehand, presentation wise, it's dark, it's grungy. And then obviously WWE completely changed it. The splatter of colors and the lighting and stuff like that. I think that really made people just, it was kind of like this huge like culture shock, right? Like everything they knew and loved about NXT completely changed overnight. The way that they remember it, right? Now, for me, I watched NXT since the beginning. I remember back when it was considered developmental, and you had, Seth Rollins and Big E Langston, and you had all of these different people. You had Liaki and you had Leo Kruger, and again, you had characters, right? So for me, it resonates with me a lot more now because I like professional wrestling. But AEW and NXT, the black and gold version of NXT, they were too similar, right? Too similar. And now it seems like NXT is starting to become its own thing. I do agree. The lighting, I think the presentation, like the new arena and the performance center was badass. Like I like the presentation as far as that goes. I like the camera angles, but the colors and everything, it's just too much of a change. That was one of the things I didn't like about NXT. And in fact, it's actually one of the big things I still don't like about NXT. I'm not saying they had to be black and gold. I'm not saying they had to keep the same logo. Even the new logo, like you could just go away. You can do black and white, you know what I mean? You don't have to do all of these colors because I do think it looks a little too much like Nickelodeon, Disney-esque. But yeah, once I kind of got over that, I've realized that NXT is actually a good show. And I do stand by my comments. I think NXT, not saying it's perfect, but I will speak highly of it if I think it's good. And I do think it is good right now. I think NXT, hands down right now, is getting to the point where NXT, it's logical. There's not that much 50-50 booking. Realistically, you don't really see DQs. Everybody has characters. People are presented as a big deal. That is something that I think a lot of people need to realize, especially when you watch NXT in 2022. You got to keep in mind, like, everybody has something going for themselves, right? Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes both on commentary tonight, which, by the way, Carmelo Hayes mentioning Pete Dunne's name change, going to the main roster, taking credit for that. Just a nice little thing, right? Mike says NXT 2.0 feels more like a part of the WWE universe than the black and gold ever did. I 100% agree. And I think sometimes people like to complain about NXT or WWE in general, but I can't question WWE's formula. Not everything is for me. I've said this before. Not everything is for me. As a fan, I do understand that, and this is why I do watch New Japan. This is why I watch Impact, and this is why I watch AEW. This is why I watch GCW. Every company has something for me. Every company has something for me, which is why I didn't like NXT and AEW going head-to-head on Wednesday nights. I wasn't a fan of flipping through channels. I understood a lot of wrestling fans were like super excited about a potential wrestling war, but to me, a wrestling war is not enjoyable because I enjoy all wrestling companies. And by the way, I think every company has some garbage. Every company. I think AEW has some garbage. I think WWE has some garbage. I think Impact, and every company has a little bit of bad. But what's really cool is all of these companies have some really good stuff, and that's what intrigues me, and that's what I typically enjoy. So when I see NXT, people ask me, they're like, well, why do you like NXT? It does feel more like the WWE stuff, main roster stuff. I agree, but I don't see a lot of 50-50 booking. I don't see DQ finishes. We saw LA Knight get pinned 1-2-3 in a championship match tonight in the main event. We all know if this was WWE Raw or SmackDown, Bobby Roode would have interrupted or Braun Breaker would have interrupted. So now I got there. I got to the point where I started to realize, like, this is not the same main roster stuff. It might appear like it, but it's really not. And trust me, I've been watching NXT since 2012, 2013, when they were in Full Sail. I seen the characters. I looked at guys like The Ascension. I looked at guys like Xavier Woods. I looked at a lot of people before they went to the main roster. And now I think WWE has changed the process, because back then, 8 years ago, when WWE had people in NXT, they had characters, and then they moved to the main roster and they lost their characters. And I don't think that's going to be the plan this time. Based on the way WWE has presented NXT, I feel like now there's a little bit more togetherness. I don't know if that's the word I'm trying to use, but off the top of my head, that's the word that comes to my mind. I think they've kind of gotten to this point, though, where there's like a little bit, it just comes together a lot better now. And I think when WWE prepares Braun Breaker now for the main roster, I don't think Braun Breaker will actually change. Now, you might be wondering, why am I making this guess? Well, it's because NXT is actually on television now, right? They're on USA Network. Now, your argument might be, well, what about Butch? Pete Dunne. Well, Pete Dunne went from USA Network to Fox. But I think if you're from NXT and you go to Raw, I don't think you'll see many changes. If you're one of these people that actually have a character. Pete Dunne didn't have a character. And I've actually said this before, and I said this was one of the things I didn't like about AEW and Impact. Being a good wrestler is not intriguing to me. It's not. It's not something I care as a wrestling fan, right? You're going to have a whole bunch of other people disagree with that, and that's fine. Being a good wrestler, for me personally as a fan, it doesn't really, and like my experience doesn't, I don't necessarily feel like I can't miss a show when, like right now, for example, I don't care. How do I word this? I don't think being a good wrestler makes the show can't miss, because I can go back and DVR and watch any wrestling match, right? 5-star match. I can see that, right? I can see a 5-star match any point in time. I can go and watch it. With a storyline that's good, I don't want to turn away from it. And this is why, for example, with AEW, when AEW was building up Hangman Page and Kenny Omega, one of the best storylines in the past year, 2 years, really, when you think about it, I felt like that was can't miss. You know, I feel like it can't be missed. And the reason why I think it can't be missed is because Hangman Page and Kenny Omega was such good storytelling. For me, I felt like I had to go back and watch it live every week. And that's where I think WWE right now, NXT, is like, oh my God, like I don't want to miss Carmelo Hayes. I don't want to miss Trick Williams. I don't want to. Whoa, hold on. Dolph Ziggler's WWE NXT champion? Braun Breaker lost? I mean, they've been building Braun Breaker up to be this guy that's like impossible. Like he's like the new man. Like he's the new guy. He's the new face of the company. Oh, wait, he just lost to Dolph Ziggler? I really got to watch that. And then I'm watching it, right? And Braun Breaker then comes out at the end of NXT, punches Bobby Roode, goes face-to-face with Dolph Ziggler. Dolph Ziggler grants him the match at Stand and Deliver. I hate to use the example of Grayson Waller, but Grayson Waller and AJ Styles was another good indication for me that I was really starting to enjoy NXT, because it was logical. Grayson Waller, being the NXT guy, should have never gone over AJ, which thankfully he didn't. But they didn't make Grayson Waller look bad. Oh, by the way, now Grayson Waller's with Sanga, former tag team partner of Veer. Both of these guys remain to be relevant. Which, by the way, if you didn't know, A-Kid from NXT UK will be fighting against Grayson Waller next week for the ladder match qualifier. Again, this is something that I'm noticing. Everybody has something special about them. And it intrigues me. It really does intrigue me. And that's why I think I like NXT. And of course, I with the way NXT is booked and the way it's written, again, not everything's perfect. Yeah, sometimes it's cringy. But I think NXT is very strong on its own as a wrestling product. I also want to mention, too, because I think this is so important, because we talk about characters. Look at Grayson Waller. Look at Cameron Grimes. Look at those two guys. More than likely, they go to the main roster. They're a comedy character. I use these two as an example, because I think both of their work in NXT has been pretty damn good, right? But I mention this because I think this is so important to mention. I understand that WWE, and granted, I could be wrong, But the way I visually see it right now, perception is this. Cameron Grimes, to me, is not a world champion guy in WWE. He's not going to go against Brock Lesnar, right? I don't think they've positioned him in that situation. Same thing with Grayson Waller, based on the way they're presented right now. But where I see them being presented as two marketable talents that could be on USA or Fox at any point in time, completely get over as a babyface or a heel, and they could be really solid for the mid-card. By the way, if you watch WWE's main roster, one of the biggest issues I've talked about in the past is their mid-card. Tons of talent, no booking. No good booking. I look at NXT and I think, wow, you could have Cameron Grimes go up to the main roster with his character to the moon. You can have him go up there and compete for the US or Intercontinental Championship in a meaningful feud. Same thing for Grayson Waller. So that's why I bring these things up, because I've noticed as I watch the show more and more, that's what they're doing. They're positioning people in a certain way where it's like, I understand their role. Now, before in 2018, 2019, everybody that was signed to WWE, it was like, oh, they should be the top star. They should be the top star. They should be top star. To be honest with you, they were never going to be the top star. They had nothing. In WWE's eyes, they had nothing to be the top star. That's the way I viewed it as a wrestling fan. They didn't appear as a top star. And that's because WWE is more focused on the characters and the likenesses and the IPs and all of these different things, the marketability. And then you watch AEW and Impact, and it's like, okay, can this guy be a good wrestler? Can he cut a promo? Can he do all of these things? Well, even if he can't cut a promo, but he's a really, really good wrestler, we could still push him. Whereas WWE is kind of like looking for this whole package. And I've noticed this comparison between both all these companies. And I'm not saying one company is better than the other, because again, I do enjoy every company. But I think WWE, people back in 2018, 2019, 2020, people were looking at the NXT roster and they're like, oh, well, Swerve should be the world champion. I agree. I think Swerve could be a world champion. I don't think Swerve, the way he was presented in WWE originally in NXT when he first came in, I don't think he looked like a world champion. When Swerve won the North American Championship, there was something about him where it just kind of clicked for me, and I said, wow, this guy could really be a world champion in WWE, Raw or SmackDown. Now, Swerve goes to AEW, and there's like this weird thing in WWE, or I'm sorry, in AEW, compared to WWE, right? Swerve goes to AEW, he's suited, he's talking smooth, like he's actually got, strangely enough, it's like he's got an identity, which is something that I feel like he kind of missed in WWE a little bit. So now I'm excited about Swerve in AEW. Why? Because I saw a glimpse of what he could be in WWE, and now I see AEW is going to give him the freedom to actually do it. I hope AEW views him as a top star. I hope he's not just thrown around in singles matches, having good wrestling matches. I hope this guy's actually like given good storylines and the ability to cut great promos and, you know, present them in a meaningful way, because so far what they've shown is that Swerve could be a big asset. But his debut match was against Tony Nese, somebody we've seen him fight against on 205 Live or whatever it was. So like, that to me didn't feel different, you know? Albert says, no good booking. What do you mean? Finn became champ and has lost 2 weeks straight against Ricochet. Has lost 2 weeks straight. Ricochet won, and he's somewhere, I believe. Ricochet, I mean, look, Ricochet winning the Intercontinental Championship was cool. It was a cool moment. Finn winning the belt was cool, but Finn losing against Damian Priest in the rematch was something else. I mean, that kind of goes into the whole Cody thing, I think, too. I could be wrong, but obviously Damian Priest hit the Cody Rhodes. I forget what Cody calls it. Jesus, man, I'm having a brain fart. Crossroads. He hit the Crossroads or the Reckoning or hit the Lights or whatever the hell they call it these days. But he hit the finisher. So I think that was just a way to tease Cody Rhodes. But honestly, I think that's why, like, when people ask me, people say, hey, Angle, like, you're so not biased. It's true, man. I'm really not biased. I'm really, really not biased. I think every company offers something good. Dolph Ziggler on NXT was something out like in my head. I was like, this is going to be garbage. They're just going to put Dolph Ziggler over everybody. They're going to make everybody look bad. Like, that was like my first reaction. And then you start to realize, like, holy shit. They are treating Dolph Ziggler the right way on NXT. Which it's like a welcome change to see Dolph Ziggler hold that belt. And I get it. It's not for everybody. I understand that. I do understand that this is literally not for everybody. And that's totally cool. But I really did enjoy the show. And it was really nice to see Dominick Mysterio and Rey Mysterio. I don't want to say they set anything up. But they did something. Because WWE very well in the future could go back to Santos Escobar. They can go back to Santos Escobar, Legado del Fantasma. Excuse me. They can go back to that with Rey Mysterio in the future. So, no, honestly, NXT was a fire show. I give it a really high rating. I was really pleased with it. It was just really cool to see. It was just really cool to see a good episode. I'm glad that more and more people are starting to enjoy it. And I want to do this on a weekly basis. What I'm going to start doing is organizing these post shows a little bit better in terms of like presentation and bringing guests on. Definitely excited for the future of NXT though. Tonight was a good step in the right direction. So, if you guys want to get in any more super chats or anything, you guys want to become a member, get those in now before we get off. If you guys want to send those in now, let's do that. We're closing in on about 45 minutes. Very cool show. By the way, if you guys aren't in the Discord server, let's make sure you guys have access to that. Please join the Discord server. It's completely free. You could join the Discord server. We're building a community. There's like 300 plus people, 400 people. We all talk about wrestling. We enjoy wrestling. We talk about AEW and WWE and NXT and New Japan and GCW and MLW and AAA and CMLL. We even talk about normal sports. We talk about gaming. We're bringing people together. So if you guys are interested in that type of thing, go ahead and check it out. I just put the link in the chat. The link is also in the description. Albert dropping a super chat. I think I just got the alert. Let's see. Did I just get the alert? Yes, I did. Albert just sent a super chat. I feel if WWE put more time in the mid-card, it feels like AEW in a way because it becomes more wrestling, less entertainment, and that's not for Vince. I do agree with that, Albert. I do agree. And I think WWE really needs to treat their mid-card, and this could be the wrong approach here, but if WWE treats their mid-card kind of like their main event scene, right? Get those belts presented in a way where they're meaningful, open challenges every week, title defenses pretty regularly, even if they're defending the belt successfully. It would just show people that Ricochet is a good champion. It would show people that Finn Balor is a good champion. This way, in the event, if WWE ever decides, right? This is if they ever decide to move those guys up to the main event scene, which, by the way, I think naturally would happen here. But if WWE has these guys regularly defending their belts in the mid-card, I think it would get people excited about the future if they were part of those plans in the future. By the way, I didn't mention this. Thank you again, Albert, by the way, for your super chat. I didn't mention this, but this was one of the things I really, really wanted to mention before I got off air. The Creed brothers called out their mystery attackers. MSK came out wearing NWO shirts. They said they didn't attack them, but they still want their match. They still want a match against the Creed brothers. Diamond Mine is looking good. Julius and Brutus Creed, absolutely phenomenal. MSK, excuse me. MSK wearing the NWO shirts. We get the Scott Hall tribute. Beautiful touch. Hey, yo. Great little promo back and forth. Imperium comes out. Imperium challenges them both to a triple threat match for a stand and deliver. I'm calling it now. This is going to be match of the night. This could potentially be match of the year. And we still don't know. We still don't know who is going to be revealed as the mystery attackers. I also want to mention, because we talked a little bit about Briggs and Jensen, and we talk about this tag team division. Look at NXT's tag team division compared to WWE main roster. Again, a lot of people want to take shots at NXT. Oh, it's too much. It's WWE main roster light. I'm seeing a deep tag team division. I'm seeing a tag team division that looks good, where logic is applied. Briggs and Jensen, future tag team champions. Those guys are going to be main roster studs with this gimmick. And now they add Fallon, what's her name? Fallon Henley, I think was her name. Incredibly great. By the way, Malik Blade, Idris Enofi. You got Idris, who's got swag, and Malik Blade is like a nerd. Again, there is depth to these characters. I want everybody to know something. When it comes to watching NXT, it may not be the show for you. Maybe you can't stand the idea of characters and stuff, and that's fine. I'm not saying you have to. But I see more logic being applied in NXT right now than ever before. And I look at the NXT tag team division as something special. I really do. I look at Legado del Fantasma. I look at the Creed brothers. I look at Imperium. I look at MSK. I look at all of these teams, Briggs and Jensen. Every one of these teams have characters. Every one of these teams have something going on. Every one of these teams have an identity, something that is missing from the main roster. And it's really amazing. I will never ever speak negatively about AEW's tag team division, because AEW has a very, very good tag team division. Incredible tag team division. Impact Wrestling's tag team division, to me, it feels like it has shortcomings. The WWE main roster tag team division, I don't really care for it. It's almost non-existent as well. But I look at NXT's main roster, NXT's roster, and I see that tag team division. Everybody has an identity. Everybody has a character. They all got something going on. And I genuinely think WWE, if they can take this NXT tag teams and if they can move them to the main roster one day and continue to focus on them, tag team division, the future of tag team wrestling in WWE would be really, really good. I genuinely believe that. Briggs and Jensen and Idris Enofi and Malik Blade, like, what the hell? Like, this is good shit. And by the way, like, it's just so freaking good. It was unexpected, to be honest. I didn't expect there to be like a highlight on tag team wrestling there. Myra just left a $5 super chat. Any ideal mid-card best case scenarios? I'm not sure when IC US titles lost their spark as transition titles, but feeling nostalgic now. I mean, I think the best case scenario here, Myra, is pretty simple. I think WWE just needs to have these belts defended regularly. When Shinsuke Nakamura was holding those belts, when he held the Intercontinental Championship, he barely defended the belt. And I think that right there was I think that was the big miss. I really think not defending the belt, not seeing it every week was an issue. And it's like, you see Nakamura and Rick Boogs and tag team matches, and that's cool. But Nakamura was the Intercontinental Champion, and then Sami Zayn becomes the Intercontinental Champion, and then he drops the belt to Ricochet. So now we're actually starting to see some action, which is good. But in order for these belts to be meaningful, they need to have title defenses. Damian Priest, as far as the U.S. Championship goes, he did a great job. He held the belt for over 190 days, I believe. Damian Priest did a phenomenal job as a U.S. champion. He lost the belt to Finn Balor, but I want to see Finn Balor defend this belt successfully. I want to see him in programs. That's the only way WWE is going to get these belts and this mid-card division relevant. They do. They book their mid-card really bad, which is crazy because I look at NXT and I see how well they do booking in NXT. So I hear a lot of people, they tell me, oh, well, Vince McMahon is running NXT. Well, whatever the hell he's doing in NXT, tell this guy to do the same thing for the main roster, because in my eyes, NXT doesn't have the same bullshit that is happening on the main roster. Thank you again, Myra, for your $5 super chat. I appreciate you. Again, thank you, everybody, for your super chats. If you guys want to get them in before we go off the air, feel free to do so now. If you guys haven't become a member, you can become a member today for $4.99 a month. Whole bunch of perks. VIP access on the Discord server as well. Allison says, my suggestion is he went home to his wife and baby, but I just don't want to say that. I don't want to get my facts wrong. I'm not sure what that's in regards. Oh, for Cody. I don't want to talk about Cody today because we're still waiting for some more details, but as it stands, it looks like there is a lot of talk about Cody still being in WWE. Meltzer did drop something today as well that said it was Cody versus Rollins at Mania. There was a leak on Reddit that suggested that match was also official as well. So we'll kind of see what happens there. Myra just left another $5 super chat. I agree, Nakamura's title reign was not meaningful. Hopefully they can get it together or something. Well, now we're starting to see it, right? We're starting to see that they're picking things up a little bit, which is fantastic. I think right now as it stands with WWE specifically, Nakamura's title reign was bad. It was bad. And the way to make it meaningful is just defend these belts. Now, by the way, Nakamura and Rick Boogs are fighting for the tag team championships at WrestleMania against the Usos. So I don't know what the hell the plans are there, but I do agree it was not meaningful. It's a shame that it was not meaningful because he held the belt for a long ass time. He just didn't defend it. And I do want to give WWE some shit here because I know I've been praising WWE a little bit for NXT. But the main roster, to have a championship belt, a newly designed belt, and barely see it defended, that belt doesn't even feel freaking important. Unbelievable. It's not something I'll understand, to be honest, but it's just the way it is, unfortunately. Allison says, how do I subscribe? Well, to subscribe to the channel, there should be a button on the page that says subscribe. If you're looking at becoming a member for the channel, you are going to click the join button, which should be next to the subscribe button. And if you're looking at sending a super chat, it should be a little icon in the chat with a $sign. If you want to do that, feel free to do so. But yeah, no, honestly, it was just a really good day for wrestling. So far, it's actually been a really good month for wrestling. So, yeah, I'm really happy right now. I think NXT was great, and tomorrow we'll be back with AEW, which I look forward to AEW every week. I look forward to NXT every week. These are the two shows I look forward to the most, Dynamite and NXT. Even Raw has been pretty good. I've been pretty excited about Raw lately. Obviously, you got the Cody rumors. You got so much stuff happening. It's such a cool time. But yeah, guys, we're gonna call it a night. You know, it's 11 o'clock. We've been live for over an hour. Mike, Allison, Myra, Albert, Todd, everybody that's in the chat. I'm trying to read off as many people as possible, but it's going by pretty quickly. Thank you guys all for stopping by tonight. I'll be back tomorrow for AEW Dynamite. It should be a really fun episode. Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker for the Women's Championship. Plus, we got some big news stories coming tomorrow. So, as always, stay tuned. I'll bring you guys my reactions to everything that's happening. And thank you guys again all for your super chats, memberships. Austin, thank you for renewing your membership 7 months straight. You guys are all the best. I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching. Peace. You gotta be kidding me. Guys, are you serious? Oh my God. As I'm getting off the air, we just got 2 super chats. Oh my God. All right, let's read these off really quick. Albert says, I feel Nakamura was giving the belt to keep him from leaving. He was given the belt to keep him from leaving, so why do I feel Cody will be treated any better if he returns? I think WWE is going to pay a shit ton of money for Cody. And I think the only way Cody joins WWE is with guarantees. I don't think he's going to ask for creative control, but I can see that he's going to want that. I think he's going to want that guarantee. It depends, man. I think Nakamura too. He's not the same wrestler as he was 10 years ago, so keep that in mind. Again, thank you, Albert, for your super chat. Myra says, exactly, hardly any defenses. Well, I'm excited and hope Boogs and Nakamura defeat the Usos. Okay, now to watch NXT 2.0. Thank you so much, Myra, for your super chat again. Yeah, no, Rick, Boogs, and Nakamura as a tag team is cool. I'm all for it. I think Boogs could be a really special singles guy, too. I don't know why he gives me like this Rick Rude thing. I definitely get the feeling that he's like Rick Rude for some reason. He's just really fun, charismatic. And obviously Nakamura teaming with him, it should be interesting. I do think they're going to lose. I predict that they're going to lose the match. I think Nakamura is going to turn heel, actually. I do think he's going to turn on Rick Boogs, which should give us a singles program on SmackDown. So if I'm WWE, I 100% commit to Rick Boogs being a singles guy. You set it up pretty easily. Nakamura loses at WrestleMania with him against the Usos. They lose the match. He turns on Rick Boogs. Obviously, people get excited about Rick Boogs being a singles guy. And then, of course, in that situation, too, Nakamura can kind of get this new heel character going. Who knows? I mean, you never really know. But if I'm WWE, that's what I would do. Because I think, Usos winning the belt, Roman Reigns holding the belt, I think they're going to continue the bloodline thing. And again, WWE's tag team division is not on the main roster. It's not a big push, at least on SmackDown compared to Raw. So it is something to kind of keep that in mind. But yeah, thank you guys for your super chats. Albert, Myra, thank you both for those last minute super chats. We are getting off the air though, so thank you guys all for stopping by. I want to read those before getting off. Thank you all for stopping by and your support. I'll be